might be interesting.
No, Wade's not that type.
Oh, and what? An Elton John
You
ticket.
like Elton John music? I don't think so, see? He doesn't look it. He doesn't have the look. Who's that? It's all beer in there. I'll be back.
I hope so.
Not that much
Hi, Mom. Afraid I'll never come out.
I don't know if it's got enough lights in there.
And then he'll go back to the guy again who's deciding.
The question is, you added right on the camera, you have to save it on
Well, this camera has what's called a flying erase head. Plus it has the stuff on it you can do ourselves.
right here. For the video camera? You want to show it or something? Yeah, go ahead.
What?
This is the studio.
Oh, what's that, the wire?
Oh, no, look at the boat.
I noticed that got a very popular reception. Huh? Did you notice?
Well, I found this place after being here for some time. It had been open for about 2 months or so. I found this place and I thought it was kind of neat, you know. And so I found out that they had poetry readings on Wednesday night. So instantly I was interested in this because wow, inside I can read poetry to people and not get rained on or whatever, stay warm, and. So I started coming to the poetry shows here on a regular basis, and well, the way it turned out, the fellow that was running the show in those days, they've had poetry every Wednesday night at Planet X since the place has opened. But for the first couple of months, the guy who was running the show was somewhat unreliable. He would sometimes he would just not show up at all. Sometimes he would show up intoxicated, too intoxicated to, actually be coherent or whatever. And so the owners of the place, who I had made friends with from just, by being a customer here, and actually we've grown quite close since then. But they came to me and they said, well, actually the way it happened was that he didn't show up one night, and so since the people who were working that night had seen me in here before on Wednesday nights, they said, hey, how about, you know, running this poetry show tonight, because we don't know if this guy's going to show or not. So I did, and then the week after that, that's, you know, the owners approached me and said, well, you know, how about doing this on a regular basis, you know? I mean, you know, you seem to enjoy it, people seem to, you know, like what you're doing, and you know, we know we can count on you and everything to be there and do it. So I said, sure, and that was in, I guess, May, April or May, yeah, I think it was May of 1993. So, and I've been doing it ever since. So that's what, about 2.5 years now. And I think I've missed 3 times, 3 Wednesdays in that 2.5 years. I just love this. I love doing it. I love being here.
Here at Planet X, and I don't know, lately we've been starting between 8:30 and 9 o'clock, and it's an open reading, which means all you have to do is put your name on this list I hold in my hand here, and eventually we'll call your name out, and you can read your poetry for us. If you've never been here before, I suggest that you stay around. It's usually a lot of fun. Some of the poetry will bring a tear to your eye, and some of it will make you want to hurl, but one thing's for sure, there's never a dull moment on Planet X Poetry Night.
Urination, meditation, haiku. The white porcelain says American Standard. I read as I piss. Okay. I'd like to do 2 more here. 2 of my favorites. This is called Creed, a personal statement. I believe in the existence of a perfectly balanced combination of caffeine, alcohol, THC, and psilocybin. I believe in rock and roll, and that all the wisdom we really need can be found somewhere in its lyrics. I believe that there is a small but still significant chance that some government agency is keeping closer tabs on me than I would like. I don't believe in leading a life of quiet desperation. I believe in leading a life of screaming, crying, clawing desperation. I believe that no beverage should be served warmer than body temperature. I believe that love could still save us all, but that the odds are not good. And I believe that either makes me a romantic cynic or a cynical romantic, but I'm not sure which. I believe that confusion is good for the soul, and that moderation is a fine thing if used in moderation. I believe that however good poetry gets, under the right circumstances, silence is more eloquent. I believe that Bugs Bunny has the Buddha nature, and that Daffy Duck is the inheritor of the mantle of Eris and Loki and Trickster Coyote. I believe that dogs are far wiser than cats and have much to teach us. I believe that people who talk about how wonderful and innocent and joyous childhood is have forgotten what it was like to be a child. I believe that the habitual wearing of a necktie decreases blood flow to the brain and kills the regions responsible for creative and independent thoughts. I believe it is better to stay up until 6 a.m. than to get up at 6 a.m. I believe that it is far, far, far better to stay up until 6 a.m. than to get up at 6 a.m. And I believe that if the human race does not destroy itself, we will evolve into gods, or at least angels, with wings built by the Wright brothers, and Tsiolkovsky and Goddard, and with electric guitars instead of harps to jam with the music of the spheres. I'd like to do one more. This is a true story, more or less, as true as any story ever is. You know, you can take a guess for yourself just how much that is. If I can find it here. Yes, here it is. This is called A Bizarre Act of Kindness. Every once in a while, it's good to step out of your everyday thing and do something a little strange. Thus it was that one fine May evening, after several hours of drunken debauchery in honor of a friend's imminent nuptials, which is as classy a way as I can figure out to say bachelor party, I found myself sitting at the bar in a dingy little strip club. And as I sat there sipping a warm Budweiser and studying the thighs of the dancer on the bar in front of me, a man walked in and sat down next to me. Now, throughout my life, I've apparently given off some sort of strange glow, a weird aura that attracts the truly bizarre and twisted people and makes them want to tell me their story. Tonight was no exception. "Wow," said my new companion, watching the dancers shake their stuff. "This is too much." I muttered something non-committal but agreeable. "No, you don't understand," he continued. "I just got out of jail today." Now, after a six-pack or two, I'm a pretty friendly guy. So to make conversation, and because I was too toasted to think before I spoke, I asked, "So what were you in for?" And he paused, but that aura of mine must have made him talkative, for he replied, "I killed a guy in a bar fight." I made a mental note to be very, very polite to this man. And he went on to tell me how it was self-defense, and he got time anyway, and hell, I don't know, maybe it was true. And how he just got out today to find out that his wife had left him, and thus he had washed up on the bar stool next to mine. Now, the whole time he was talking, the dancers kept going by, and I was stuffing dollar bills in their G-strings because, well, why not? That's what you do. It's traditional. It's invigorating. It's a real mood lifter. So I suggested it to my new friend. But he had spent his last cash on an overpriced beer. So I gave him a single so he could buy the cheap thrill. This was, from his reaction, the first nice thing anyone had done for him in years. He shook my hand, called me a saint, even told the dancer where the dollar had come from. We talked a little bit more before he left, and I like to think that my bizarre act of kindness might have helped restore his faith in humanity. Or maybe I just reminded him that with the right sob story, you can get some sucker to pay for your cheap thrills. I'm not sure which. Thank you. Haiku, urination meditation haiku. If I remember right where that comes from, I think I was thinking about it's an old George Carlin routine talking about urinals are 50% universal. It's just something that every man's got to do, you know? Get up there every day working that urinal. It's a moment. I've always thought of a haiku as capturing a moment. It's like taking a photograph with words. Or maybe not a photograph, maybe that's not the right word. More like a Zen painting, which outlines in very broad, quick strokes the scene. I think a haiku does that the same way that a Zen painting does with a landscape, for example. A haiku captures a moment. I've always loved the haiku for that brevity, that conciseness. There's nothing you can add, there's nothing you can take away to a good haiku. Yeah, before I started reading here, I don't think I had a single book of poetry in my house. Of course, since then, collected several. People come and share their favorite poets. I've got chapbooks from some of the local poets. During the fire, during the I guess it was 3 or 4 months, Planet X had burnt down. But we kept the readings going every Wednesday, right out front or across the street. And after a couple of weeks, because it was the same half dozen people showing up every week, we had run through all of our poetry. And so people started bringing books of their favorite poets to share. That's when I started to discover Bukowski, for example, was one that I remember I was just blown away by some of the stuff people brought by Bukowski.
Big things I think about this show. A lot of times I'll read work in here that is by the masters. You know, I've read Ginsberg in this place any number of times. Sometimes I read Tennyson, what have you. And that's all in an effort, I think, to get people to realize that, you know, there's a whole lot of good writers out there, and all they have to do is go to the bookstore and, you know, pick up a book and read, go to the library, what have you. Actually, it works. People do it, you know, and they come back with their Norton anthologies of poetry, you know, and they read other things for people, and the whole process just grows. I think the most fascinating thing about the poetry here at Planet X was when there was a fire here. Actually, the fire was upstairs, but this place just suffered a ton of water damage. I mean, there were 100 firefighters on the scene. It was a big, big fire, and so, you know, there was so much water that just came through the roof that it just collapsed. It just caved in, and you know, everything was water damaged, and that was what, in July of last year, July of '94. After the fire, you know, within 2 days after that happened, I talked to Justine, who's the owner of the place, she and her husband, and she said to me, "Well, you're going to continue to have the poetry, right?" And I said, "Well, yeah, of course. You know, we can't stop that." So we sort of spread the word, you know, just basically by word of mouth, and also there's a number that you can call and listen to the tape of events that are going on here. We put it on that. We more or less spread by word of mouth that we were going to have, we were still going to have the poetry on Wednesday night, the same time, across the street there in the grass, you know, in the field there by the wall. And, you know, I wasn't sure how this was going to work out, you know, there's no coffee, you know, I wasn't sure how, you know, how people were going to react to this. And what I found out was that they came. They came in droves. They just, you know, and for several months until, well, through October, so it was July, August, September, for about 4 months, 3-4 months, people came to this poetry reading that was outside, you know, I mean, you know, they'd run to the, you know, the local restaurants or whatever to go to the bathroom. They'd go to 7-Eleven or whatever to get a cup of coffee and come back. But they came. This amazed me to no end, that people were so in touch with the idea of getting together on a weekly basis and reading our poetry to one another, that they would come, even if there wasn't really, you know, a place to come to. One night there were tornadoes less than 10 miles from here, and we were outside, all underneath this awning in front of the place because it was raining like crazy. Right? We're all underneath this awning, and we're reading poetry to one another, and there's tornadoes everywhere. I could not believe it. You know, I could not believe these people. How much dedication they had to this idea. You know, it was really encouraging and really touching, you know. And of course, we were all glad when the place opened up because it was October. It was getting a little cold. You know, the crowd was somewhat diminishing by then because of the cold, you know, because it was hard to stay out there for 2 hours, you know, and keep still and keep warm.
Okay, and the last one I'll read for you is entitled Your Soul. You think I want your heart. I don't. That pumping mass of scar tissue lodged within 6 inches of flesh and bone hurts, bruised, and I must piece together? No. Perhaps you think I want your love. That over-exaggerated emotion based on 4 letters and a feeling. Your mortal love? I don't. Perhaps you think I want your mind. Your ever-changing, indecisive mind, always thinking, forming, growing. No, I don't think so. Me? I want your soul. Not that I claim to be God or even Satan for that matter, and I am willing to share with one, or maybe even the other, but I want your soul. I want to possess you. Dwell there, drip down your insides like honey, thick and sweet, covering everything. Even when you close your eyes, I want to be your dream, or maybe even your nightmare. You basking in the aura of my presence, wake up smiling, thinking the wind in your face is my breath. Your soul. What you believe in, what you cry for, what you need. No. I want to be the reason you believe, cry, and need. Permanent, that constant whisper in your head you just can't shake. Your soul. You've offered me your heart. You've offered me your love. You even dared to offer me your mind. But I want the supernatural consciousness of your mortal being. Give me your soul. Please. Thank you.
I have a very projective voice. I work with old people. I scream all day. So, since you're young and able to hear, I know I will have your attention. Anyway. Okay, my name is Pam. I am a director of rehabilitation therapy during the day. And in my nightlife, I write poetry. Is that exciting or what?
Yes, it's very exciting.
Thank you, Ben. I need to rehabilitate you. Okay, this is a new one, hot off the presses. It's called Espresso Machine. It's called.
So much for the projective voice. All that drama training for nothing.
I have no training, can't you tell? Get this. I write this poem, okay? Like, here's the story behind this, all right? I write this poem out of a joke, and it becomes like my most famous poem in this place. I don't know why it was a joke, but I guess it has some deeper meaning. I mean, I can't say that stuff that I write does not have some deeper meaning, but I'm going to read it, and I've read it here before. I mean, I have so much stuff, but I'm going to read it because it, again, was requested tonight. And for those of you who have not had the pleasantries of listening to this poem about my breasts, you can hear it once more. It's called These Two. If I can find it. Oh, here we go. These two are breasts. These two are me. They are not boobs, gazongas, tits, melons, or mitts. These two are breasts. These two are me. They are not to be rated, judged, sized, squeezed, or adjusted. These two are breasts. These two are me. Now, boys in the audience, and I do mean boys, how would you like to have pet names for what you call dear? Gender gifts, shall we say? Now, there goes a hoo-ha, a Harry, a sailor, an inky, dinky, winky, or meaty. There goes a cocktail wiener, ballpark Frank, gardener, snake, or worm. You need to wear tight, knit, ribbed pants for our pleasure. Naming you sweater guys to be oogled, whistled at, and hit on. These two are breasts. These two are me. They are not to be pushed together in cleavage wonder bra, pinched in confused ecstasy, stuffed, siliconed, or lifted. They are not to be placed in an antique wire slingshot, metal cones, or clasps. These two are breasts. These two are me. Now, boys in the audience, and I do mean boys, how have you managed managed to gain authority of those positioned over my heart. You seem to know what's best for what you can't even handle right. We women must breastfeed offspring close in. Guys, you attach a pinching, squeezing drooler to your manhood and tell me if you feel like nurturing. And check yourself monthly. If you find a lump, we'll remove yours in mercy. Just stop. If I turn the page. These two are breasts. These two are me. Not on my resume, not my personality, not in sex and pleasure alone, not a business card or self-esteem. These two are breasts. These two are me. Thank you. Okay.
Why don't I wait for a minute here so I don't have to contend with the blender. This is another part of the whole Planet X experience, Ernie Coffee House reading experience. Blenders and cappuccino machines and juice machines. This next one called The Abyss. When I see her smile, my heart feels a warmth that is best described with silence. Mixed emotions are smothering my soul. I'm falling fast down a bottomless hole. Within myself this pit is found. Its name is love, it has no ground. My abyss is filled with brilliant light and random spots of depressing night. As I sink, I start to wonder what lies below. Experience is the best teacher. I've lived and I've learned. Is it worth the pain to be concerned? But like a fool, I'll try again to reach my dream of finding love for that special miss to discover the bottom of my abyss. This next one's called Prison. Cue the blender. This next one's called Prison. Within a person there is a bind. To each his own we all must find that tie we call love. Often I wonder why it seems that my only love is in my dreams. Again and again without avail, imprisoned love without a bail.
In a poetry slam, a lot of times you can get by with a crummy poem as long as you read it well, you know. But then, you know, that's just me too. I mean, you know, one man's crummy is another man's gold, you know. I mean,
Burning colors in my head. I am insane.
As soon as I say to somebody, well, you know, that poem really didn't do much for me. I really didn't like it. Somebody else is going to tell me, oh, it was great. You know, you didn't like it. You know, so what do I know, right? I have my tastes, and I just basically just keep them to myself. You know, there are some nights when I leave this place just, you know, thinking that I haven't heard very much at all, and there's other nights when it, you know, just everybody seemed like they were just super talented, you know. It's pretty rare, though, for the whole night to go by and you know, for me to think that there's not one poem that I really like. You know, there's usually somebody who gets up on the stage and just knocks me down.
Fine line between urinating and masturbating. Fine line between joking and, oh my God, your dick is hanging out of your pants. 5-0, alive-o. Man, you got piss all over you. You smell more like urine than my bathroom. I mean my school's bathroom, of course. Fine line between joking and throwing a bottle at a four-sided orgasmic pyramid. Fine line between joking and hurting, between hurting and damaging. Fine line between damaging and ruining. Fine line between ruining and killing. Killing!
Justine's father, as I understand it, used to frequent a place in D.C. called Coffee and Confusion, which, as I understand it, no longer exists. But they basically did the jazz, poetry, and coffee sort of thing, you know, the beatnik sort of thing from the 50s. And so her original idea was to pattern this place after that place. You know, it's not exactly the same, but, you know, kind of the same kind of feel.
My grandmother's shadowed eyes cast a dark gray stare upon my younger face. Her long, chipped fingernails thumbed through my blonder hair as cloud-like frost pushed past freezing winter air. Caked foundation masks her bold Italian features as wisps of white fill the halo encircling her cherubian face. Winter blew in gently as a lamb while I stood cloaked in cloth, black velvet tucked into vegetable shoes. Tell me a story, I used to say when I called her Nona, pressing baby fat cheeks against her polyester lap, feeling spring peer at me beneath two shimmering eyes covered with baby's breath lace. Winter invaded autumn with blemishes charcoal gray, while my grandfather tapped his broom of a brush upon the naked canvas. I stabbed at its white with shade sanguine red, remembering wine, toasting alla faccia porca di chi ci vuol male to all of those who hated us. Winter flashed me a slushy smile as she stood with ice stuck to her branches. Winter poked its head through my back porch door, chanting, screeching, and whining. It's too cold, my grandfather says now, dipping bread into tomatoes too ripe for spring. Winter crept into my grandparents' house to stain their silver with rust. Her pine needle stretched to reach for God, who smiled upon the whitened earth, whose crescent tongue licked layers of skin from the sky's black shedded back. My grandfather stood before his painting of spring, admiring her sunshine perfection. I'll name her Pietrina, he exclaimed with delight, stroking my hair with nimble fingers and bowing his head before the canvas to wait for inspiration. I just do it for the coffee, man. You all right? I did it for... No, I'm just kidding. My I'm very Italian, well, very Catholic. Well, I was raised very Catholic, but being Italian is a very important part of my heritage. My grandfather was an immigrant from Italy here, and my grandmother was as well. And they speak fluent Italian. My grandfather, Peter Torrieri, is like really super involved with the Italian industry. Actually, he's a poet as well. He just got a book of poetry put out, and I'm very close to them, but I feel as though over the years I've become a little bit less in touch with my heritage. We actually have had like a lot of arguments about it, and I feel really terrible, a lot of guilt for differing in my views, because I've always been so close to them, and I've always spoken some Italian, and I've been to Italy a couple of times, and I've always been like really in touch with my heritage. And I feel like, you know, and when I wrote Winter, which is, you know, for my grandparents, my grandfather's a painter, and I was talking about how my grandfather would toast the family. He'd be like, alla faccia porca di chi ci vuol male, to the pig's face, to those who hate us, which means, you know, screw all those who hate us, you know, generally, because we were peasant farmers in Italy. And it's a lot, you know, he's really proud of the family, and he's really proud of our Italian heritage, and it's almost as if I feel bad for not agreeing with his beliefs. But at the same time, I am very proud of my heritage, and I don't eat chicken soft tacos. I love that one. All right, I wrote this one a couple days ago. I've been not eating meat for about 4 years now, and this is, I ate a chicken soft taco, and it tasted good. My sharper back teeth dug into lipid layers by layers of white flesh squeezed into the folds of my tongue. I savored the flavor of tweezered limbs dunking through cold, clotted blood, soaked into the proteinless, anemic holes of my empty belly. Factory farm videos haunted my brain. Chop, 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 chop. Heads are mowed from their necks. The chickens' bodies have been spoken for by human enslavers. When temptation kissed my drooling lips and entered my body with short, quick thrusts and roving hands, it licked my stomach and my throat. I devoured it, nibbling its tiny breasts, once saran-wrapped underneath supermarket fluorescent aisles. I sew my lips together, disgusted. I bury the remnants of my chicken corpse underneath the white chrysanthemums, smiling in my backyard. Coming soon, another Taco Bell.
I watch the sun disappear in my rear view mirror, craving burritos of the bean variety as my stomach churns, mourning the dead. All right, I'm done.
Good evening. Is there someone in the audience named Amanda?
That's me.
Please come with me. Feel something?
It's here for Amanda. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Are you guys vegetarians?
No, my sister-in-law is.
She is.
Cow eater.
Yeah.
You're a cow eater.
Non-cow.
You're a non-cow eater. Yeah.
I guess
You should try tahini. You should try tahini dressing. It's wonderful. It's wonderful stuff. You eat it with falafel, and you eat it with like a lot of Indian food. That's why I think that's there's a lot of poets who are vegetarians. I always thought that was kind of cool. Maybe it's, it is because they're writing and they're thinking. Yeah, vegetarian for 5 years. That's what also attracted me to Planet X.
Vegetarian.
Hey, guess what? Oh, you know what I did? This has nothing to do with anything, but I have to tell you. I made my own tahini sauce dressing the other day. Okay, Planet X is the best tahini, but it's so good. It's just wonderful. You take regular tahini paste from the cans. You add like 3 things of lemon juice. You add water and you add garlic. But we didn't have a garlic clove chopper, so I took the meat tenderizer and I was just like chop, 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 and I like put it all in the bowl and I mixed it up. It was so good. Like everybody in my house just like gobbled my tahini up. I didn't have that much left for myself. It was lots of fun. That's the funnest thing I've done lately. Besides writing, of course. I just thought I'd share that with you. I've always been a writer. It's a creative outlet of mine, like everyone has a creative outlet. I started by writing science fiction when I was a kid. I was always fascinated by like Princess Leia and female science fiction characters, especially the way that they were so tough and so dominating, and they just like took control of everything, were just like rah, rah, you know, and they just were so territorial, and it was just so amazing to me. So I wrote a Star Wars sequel with like a girl hero, and it was called Kitty the Girl Warrior. And poetry didn't come to me until I was in high school, so prose was kind of my first medium. And when I started writing poetry, it started in kind of a funny way. When I was 15, I had been living this life, this cloistered little Catholic schoolgirl, you know, like I am Miss Good Girl. You know, it was kind of funny because I went to like CCD classes and whatever, and like I have like 11 piercings on me right now. I've got a nipple, a belly, and a nose, and 8 on my ears, and it's really funny because I was always like afraid to be feminine when I was a kid. When my dad would put shaving cream on his face, and he'd like shave it off, I would put shaving cream on my face too, and I'd climb trees. And I was really afraid to show like a feminine side of myself because I thought that would be like making myself lower or subjecting myself. So, you know, the first thing I did was I went to my friend's house and I said, I'm gonna pierce my ears myself, and my friends are just like, no, you're not. And I did it. And so that started a piercing streak, and that made me want to write about it. And so the first poetry I wrote was about things that was about a lot of piercings that I, you know, had wanted to do or that I had done, because I did a lot of them myself, and also because of bad experiences I had had. I was really rebellious when I was 15. I snuck out a lot, and I met this guy, and he was 19, and he was a fucking asshole. I ended up losing my virginity to him, and so that was a major piece. I won $250 for that piece, actually. It's called Unmended Stitch, and it goes like this. You called it destiny, but it must have been fate. And how else did it go? I can't remember how it went. God, I haven't read it in so long because I've expanded beyond that. I'm trying to remember how that first piece went. I wrote it like 4 or 5 years ago. Oh yeah, you call it destiny, but it must have been fate that entangled me in your cigarette kiss, hiding my girlhood under black lace and fishnet hose. You stole my purity and led me into a world of temptation, and although I have long since recycled old beer cans, I can never stitch myself back together again. I got $250 for that piece, so I was like really euphoric. I'm like, wow, I can really release myself through poetry. I can really like take the tree and like swing and like just like, you know, just jump. It's just so there, and it helped me like be myself, and I came out. And Planet X is it's a great place. I work there now, you know. It's like, they're like, Marisa, we see you so much here, you know, why don't you get a job so we'll see you actually less. And so they hired me. But it's a great place.
I started reading there 2 years ago, along with some of the original crew. Tom's always been reading there, and Noah's always been reading there, and Steve Savian has always been hosting there. But it didn't become a magical thing for me until the place burnt down. It burnt down last summer. I'm not sure if you know. It burnt down last summer, and people started, that started bringing out people's real emotions, and people who loved poetry came out, and it wasn't just about the place, it was about the poetry, and it was about people who went out and sat outside Planet X, outside on the grass, and would sit around and we'd just read our stuff, and it was really beautiful, and it brought a lot of us together, and I think that togetherness, that unity, that bonding continued throughout this year, and that's what kept it strong. I'm not saying the burning was a good thing. It's horrible that the place had to be burnt down. A lot of people loved it, but it was just really beautiful that when it burned down in the summer, people could actually come together for what they really loved, for what they really believed in, and share, because it is a sharing. Poetry is a sharing. If that was one word I'd ask to describe it, I'd say a sharing. Then an outpouring. Well, it's the same thing. I don't know. Poetry is a beautiful art, and I hate it when people just go up there, especially at Planet Access. I love the place. It's the first place I've ever read poetry at before I won a trip to Colorado in a poetry slam. Before I started, competing, before I stared reading at clubs everywhere, Planet X has been such a cool place, and I think a lot of people who are much younger are very angsty. And I don't mean to judge young authors because they're young writers, because they are very good, and a lot of them are very talented. I think that a lot of them are very attention needing. And it gets kind of obnoxious when people go up there and they start cursing. Like, I don't curse in any of my poetry. Maybe like one piece I curse because I'm imitating somebody who curses. But I think it's really obnoxious when people who are like years younger than me, I don't even know what life is about. Okay, I'm 19 and a half. I don't pretend I know. But when kids who are like 15 and 16 go up there and say, fuck you for not knowing of who oppressed me, and they're like rich middle-class kids, they have no idea what life is about either, even less than I do, less than somebody older. They have no idea. And then they just go up there like they know what they're talking about. And I was kind of a mockery of them, even though I pity them, and I hope that they can evolve and grow with themselves a little more. So it was kind of a mockery, and it was also kind of done just to kind of make them sit there and listen, and kind of like, so they could be like, oh, I do that. Wow, I guess I am kind of that lame. Okay, I have one more, and this is called Get Off the Stage. I have so much to say. I have so much to say. I have so much to say. I have one more poem to share with you tonight. Shut up. Why are you talking? Listen to me. Listen to me. Don't you want to hear what I have to say? I'm so oppressed. Oh, my God. I have so much to say, and the spotlight is all over me. Thank you.
Okay, so on that note, we're going to take a short break, and there's plenty of more room left on the list. So if you got poetry and you want to read it, sign the list. It's over there. All right, what do you say? Oh, yeah, I gotta get rid of the get the right lighting here.
Yeah, actually, yes.
Don't start talking. Let me get
Hey, Bill, could you 86 the jazz for me, please? All right, let's get this thing started.
Okay, hello, Planet X. It's poetry night.
Excuse me for a second. All right, this first one's called Servant of Disease. The envelope sat beside him on the coffee-stained seat. Tears streaked down his angered face. Written on the envelope, Philadelphia AIDS Clinic. He drove faster with an unknown urgency into his own doom. Quit his job and stayed inside, crying himself to sleep watching talk shows. Swore daily to God that he would kill the bitch that did this to him with the little knowledge that he did this to himself. The days turned to weeks, still crying himself to sleep to talk shows on TV. He woke with a sense of urgency in the middle of the night, and even though he was cold, he still sweat. His movement was in haste. He dressed and left his apartment for the first time in weeks. He withdrew his dwindled savings and drove with an unknown urgency into the night, as if controlled like a puppet master pulling strings. He picked up the first streetwalker and took her to a room, made love to her like he was some kind of animal god. He ran to his car, crying himself to sleep against the coffee-stained seats. But drove on to the next sleazy town, not knowing a way to stop, again and again spreading his hell from whore to whore, crying himself to sleep every night. In a cheap motel he slept when it came for him, like a cannibal consuming one of his own. No one could hear his screams as he laid, his body disintegrated from the inside. Sitting unnoticed, his corpse rotted for days. The servant died at his master's will yet again. Can we get a little respect for the readers over here? Thank you.
I have a particular fascination with dolphins. I'm going to wait for the machinery to lower up and then launch into a poem that was inspired by a group of dolphins I got to swim with down in the Keys of Florida. It's called The Dolphin's Message. Silver gray gliding graces, clicks and squeals and smiling faces, knowing looks, appealing glances, dolphin swims and dolphin dances. Here they are and here they've been. Instead of hands, God gave them fin, speed and power, a sense of mirth, sensual acrobats to swim the earth. As earth evolves, and man does too, perhaps the dolphin gives a clue of choices made and choices to come, saving the planet and everyone. For man has the gift, and man is the master of splitting atoms and moving faster than all God's creatures, though can we be sure the motivation for our quest is pure. The dolphin lives in harmony, no need to dominate the sea. This simple truth can help the human care for the earth and be a new man. Perhaps one time so long ago, the Maker had two paths to sow, one for the land and one for the sea. Thus, dolphins evolved, and so did we. This message comes as no great surprise to folks who have looked in a dolphin's eyes. Seek understanding, love, and show care. There's just one earth for us all to share. Thank you. The dolphin poem, that came actually before I was writing very much poetry, and again it came to me, at me, through me. I did a dance about dolphins for 10 years. It was the biggest dance in my repertoire of my dancing career. I was an acrobatic dancer, and I did handstands and flips and toured with Kurt Thomas
in a big gymnastics show that we went around the United States, and I did it in Europe, in Switzerland and Germany. So it was like a vehicle for me, the dance. It got me around a lot. And I met people, because of the dance, I met people who worked with dolphins and studied dolphins, and ended up at a place called Dolphin Research Center in the Keys of Florida, where they liked the dance very much and let me kind of hang out there and invited me to swim with dolphins extra, didn't let me pay. They were very nice to me. And I was sitting there after having visited with dolphins for a day, and the sun was going down. There was like 16 dolphins swimming out in the Gulf of Mexico, and I was watching them, and they were peeking at me. And it just came, you know, silver gray gliding graces. That's what they were. And it just, when I got that first line, I just looked out, and there were all these silver gray gliding graces, and the rest of the poem just kind of made itself. And I ended up committing it to memory and using it in kind of a performance arts piece I did also, where I got to talk about my work as a dancer and doing the dolphin dance, and that grew to where I was also, the message is, you know, very timely, ecological, about, you know, their being important and their having a place on the planet that's we have to share, and that, as you know, the animals, if our life as humans on the planet destroys things, that eventually we're going to go too. And I do feel akin to dolphin. If you get right down to it, I have a little lump here, not a lump, an indentation right up on the top of my head. When I discovered that one, I was like, you know, like, you know, I'm either, I don't know if I'm going or coming, you know. It's like if I live a real good life as a human, maybe I'll get to come back as a dolphin, or I don't know, maybe I was a bad dolphin and I had to come back as a human.
I did some teaching in elementary school this year and wrote some sketches of some of the children I worked with. So I'm going to do a couple of those before I leave. Jody rode her pony to the county fair. She sat backwards on the pony until they got there. Then she stood upon the saddle, stretched, and shook her hair. Soon a crowd began to gather, just to stop and stare. Jody was, you must imagine, quite a sight, so rare. Then they rode into the sunset, such a lovely pair. Stephen doesn't like to dance. Perhaps he's never had the chance to shake a leg or make plie and dance the night away. Someday some girl may intervene and change the way he digs the scene. Until that time of fine romance, he's made it clear he doesn't dance. Brian, boy, be bright, be brilliant. Never let them clip your wings. You can fly above that rainbow about which young Dorothy sings. Oz is not a place for scarecrows, nor a place for men to fear. It's a state of mind created by those who live now and here.
Well, I just thought it was such a crazy place. First time I went in there, you know, like beatnik, you know, you never even hear about beatniks anymore. And yet here's a place, you know, Dobie Gillis and Maynard, and I just thought, well, you know, this is wild. It's a college town, and the food was good. Service is rotten half the time. Well, they're just all in there, but I'm used to that. I don't expect great service, first of all, but the food is good, and the people are generally friendly. And I was sitting there, you know, after I was in graduate school, and I was having dinner and reading a paper or something, and somebody came around and said, we're going to have poetry reading in 15 minutes. Do you want to read something? And there weren't many people there, and I had a couple of poems in my head because I'd been doing this with the kids, so I thought, I'll do the dolphin or some of the kids' poems. And it was kind of fun, and like I say, was a performer before. It gave me a small stage there. I took advantage, and then I went back 3 or 4 times afterwards, and I met some people. I met people that I knew. I had no idea were going to be there. It was just kind of interesting every time I did it. It was interesting for one reason or another. You have to sit through some rather difficult poets, but then a good one comes along and it's worth the wait, and you just, if it's free and it's open, you got to expect that it's not all going to be great, but some of them are worth waiting for, and I have a commanding voice, I think, and it's useful teaching school, and in a busy place like that when they're running coffee machines, you got to really at least try to project and reach people, and they appreciated that. I got some nice feedback from it, so I always enjoyed doing it. This is my classroom at Glen Haven Elementary School in Silver Spring. It's a 4th grade classroom. I'm a new teacher. I've just finished my first month. I'm greatly relieved that everything's been going pretty well. I have a terrific group of kids, and we're starting to get some of their work on the walls, and they did the alphabet animals up at the front, and there are maps of Maryland behind you, and the back wall's kind of boring yet, but I'll get there eventually. And I'm very happy to be here. It's a new profession for me, but I like children, thank goodness. But I never really considered myself a poet until some of them I liked, but I didn't do it with any regularity until I started student teaching. And I knew I could do them. Occasionally I would do a poem for somebody and send it to them for birthday or something, but my grandmother used to do that for me. So maybe my grandmother's the greatest single influence, because she actually would write little poems for me on my birthday, and I always loved them. And I was sitting in class one day, and a boy that I liked very much, it sat close to me, had his shoe untied again for like the umpteenth time. I'm always saying, Tyler, tie your shoe. Tyler, tie your shoe. Your shoe's untied again. And it just hit me one line, Tyler, tie your shoe. I said, there's a poem there, and I just started playing with that, Tyler, tie your shoe. That got me started. And that was the first one that I did for a kid up there. Also, we had a snow day, which I loved, and I think I laid in bed at home that morning and wrote a poem about teachers and kids having snow days and getting out of school. And when I read that to people, they enjoyed it a lot. That encouraged me. And then Tyler, I read the one to Tyler personally, and he liked it, and I said, can I share it with the class? And he said, sure. And when I read that poem to the class, the entire class, which I had been having a little trouble with as a student teacher, they're just one tiny step above subs, they applauded, just spontaneously. And I'm an old performer. I was a dancer before I got into school teaching, and to have that whole class start applauding was just like, oh, I've really got something here. And then they were like, do one for me, do one for me. And at first I said, oh, I can't write that many poems, I'm only here for 6 more weeks or something. I just felt like it was a hook I had with the kids if they liked it that much. And at that point, I've told a lot of people that sometimes I sort of begin working on, but a lot of the poems for kids were like the one for Tyler. I'd say something or think about them, and I'd have the thought, I'd have the hook. And then I just have to feel that I was open to it, like the muse, as they say. And I think I really was visited a lot by the muse, because some of the poems they just came through me. A few of them I had to work at. Sometimes I'd get them in almost finished form, and then the next day it would come to me what it needed to finish them off. So one by one they started coming out, and I think, you know, in about 6 or 7 weeks I did 30 poems. That was just the kids' poems and a few extra poems that were about education generally. All the kids' poems ended up rhyming, I think. Some of the others didn't. And I had all the kids make little booklets like this with their own poems, and we'd choose topics from school or.
Looking on in your life, do you think the way that you speak about writing by your children, children in the classroom, it seems like you'll be writing for quite a long time.
Yeah, I would. It was a great stimulus, and I enjoyed it. And now it's like something I know I can do. And it's just a way to speak. It makes more sense than writing straight prose sometimes. You know, you can be much more expressive if you mix the words up, and you don't have to worry so much about grammar always. And I just think I can be more expressive with these kids and help them be expressive as they're 9 years old and they're just learning about language. In poetry, there are really, in a sense, there are no rules. And there are rules, but you got to forget them too. And sometimes you don't come up with much if you're worried about if the line is this long. Or it's just a pleasant pastime, a hobby, and it helps me hook into kids. It gives me a hook on things. And sometimes it's not a choice. I mean, I think the best poems I've done really is a muse. I don't feel like I'm the poet. I feel like I'm a medium. It's more like giving birth to something that wants to be born, and they use my intellect and heart to come out. But I mean, really, the dolphin poem just went whoosh, and a lot of the children's poems too just came out. I'm driving along in a car, and it's like poem, and I you know, why fight it? Why fight it? It's fun.
Okay, come on. That's good.
Yes. Oh, just what we need, kids. Hi. Oh, good. You got a Band-Aid on that cut.
Oh, yeah.
Take care.
Come on.
These kinds scare me. They're too young.
They're too little? Okay.
Well, I like to look at them, but I'm glad I don't have to care for them. Yeah, kindergarten, preschool.
Oh, okay.
Bye. Anybody got a poem for us?
See ya.
Shield yourself, breadwinner. Take cover, breadwinner. Shield yourself, breadwinner. The cost of living is inflating. Family units are dying. The greatest crime is that after husband and wife promise to live their lives together, husband is running off for business or whatever, and she is left home all alone with all that was supposed to be shared, chained down by commitment to someone who was not even fucking there. These priorities just get tossed like salads, and the dressing has yet not even been poured. This is the accuracy of the bursting of the bubble at a price we all can afford.
So, seconds.
All right, I'll try to get through another one. I'll read them all short because it's, noisy tonight here. I cracked a joke into the cracks of your face. Now crumble. I wait for an avalanche. You are detestable. Material nature is retractable. District managers flee. The world is ending. District managers, regional managers, presidents, owners flee. Fuck your company policy. Lava from mountaintops, lava from mountaintops, lava from your mountaintops, pieces from the sky, pieces from the sky, pieces from your sky. Down with your franchise, down with your franchise, down with your franchise.
Or if you have a voice like Glenn's, Glenn is just like has an amazing, amazing voice. Glenn is just so powerful. He's just like so intense. You can't help but like step back and like, at least for a moment, feel the way he feels. You know? You can't, when you watch Glenn, you can't help but feel the way he feels about things. But he's actually such a pacifist in life that it's really amazing how he manages to be so militant in his poetry because he's such a pacifist. Like, he loves squirrels.
It's important to get people attracted, you know, or like attentive. And so here I have to get all intense like that or no one will listen.
Yeah.
I go to other places, I read other places, and people can just like, if you get all intense, like they get all upset, like why is he doing that, you know, because they're there and they drink a little bit of coffee, but they're like so focused. And so you don't have to get all intense some places. Here I do that. So the footage you have of me doing that is like that. But and some people think he's so angry and this and that. I'm not like that. I'm passionate about what I believe in, and I'm passionate about performing my poetry because it's my life and soul. And so I believe people should hear it, or people should at least be quiet while I do it. And because I give them the same courtesy. Get chaos together. Send my goddamn regards up the river. Can't believe it, how I regret it. And when they say, would you do it any differently if you could? I say, hell yes, and hell yes, and hell yes. Next poem. Injustice is this scar. Puncture my lungs to make a statement. I would jump in front of the bus rolling if I knew that it would capture your attention. Look, you bitch. Headlights, delicate like your fist. Okay, now I'm going to qualify myself with something. Okay, the commercial is my book came out, but 7 o'clock tonight. I stapled it all together myself by my lonesome. And thank you. That everything is temporary in this material world. So if you're not on the spiritual level, then, well, say if you're trying to be on the spiritual level, but you still have the consciousness that I want to enjoy this and that materially, then you got a block. You got all these hurdles. Whereas if you realize that these things are temporary, why should I fool with these things? Let's push them out of the way. Then you got a whole path, and that's a spiritual path. But you can't, you know, if you got all this, then you're discouraged from the spiritual path, and then you go back into the whole ocean of like material desire and these different things. Like sometimes I don't want to be on the platform of my mind even. I want to be on the level of my soul. And it's like a constant war, you know. Constant war with yourself to like struggle not only against society, but against your own self, against your own like vices and bad habits, and just like your mind like taking control, because your soul actually is the only thing that's going to make you happy. But your mind is aligned with your body, not with your soul. So your mind's telling you what your body wants, not what your soul wants. So it's like your mind can be your enemy or it can be your best friend. So a big part of my poetry and where the spiritual topic comes in is trying to make my mind my best friend, because myself is the only person I have, me and God, and I'm not even that advanced to see God all the time, so I'm pretty much all alone. Whether I have a girlfriend or a wife or whatever, I'm pretty much all alone. And that's pretty much where everybody is. People want their partners in life and this and that, but when it comes down to it, when it comes down to dying on your own deathbed, you're all alone. And my belief is that when you die, what you're thinking of at that time is your destination. Not heaven or hell, but what you're thinking of is your destination. And if you're thinking about Pac-Man or something, you know, who knows what's going to happen? And that's why, that's the explanation of reincarnation. So I'm always trying to like control my mind, so it's not thinking about nonsense. You know. This is called Dominion Trip, and anybody knows. If you don't get it, you don't get it. Like it says. Hopped is the appropriate word. Cute enough. A little squirrel leaps his path in the grass at White Oak. It's a whole other world for him. He doesn't know about Crazy Chris the Cannon, my anger, my poems, my 40 hours. The squirrel so small doesn't know about the man who took my money and drives me to the Silver Springs station. He doesn't know how to speak Spanish or English or Sanskrit. He doesn't know the misery of our world. He can't read stupid license plates, and he can't make death threats. That little squirrel doesn't get speeding tickets. That little squirrel doesn't have to eat fast food and use an umbrella. He doesn't get fired because he sticks up for himself at work. And that little squirrel could care less about an eternal lake of fire. He doesn't comprehend what that thing is waving, red, white, and blue, and the Maryland flag, and then the McDonald's flag. He doesn't go to McDonald's. They probably roast his walnuts in animal fat. He doesn't have to catch the green line to Fort Totten, and he doesn't care about O.J. Simpson. He never got into football. He doesn't read the Wall Street Journal, and he can't evict people from their homes. He won't make nuclear warheads. He doesn't want a refund. He doesn't have high cholesterol. He doesn't fly TWA. Little squirrel doesn't start conspiracies, and he doesn't know how to play the DC Lotto and the DC Powerball. He doesn't have to kill himself and tell himself that he can never forgive himself because he was never an alcoholic. He's never seen the electric chair. Little squirrel doesn't have to go to fake dinner parties and have to fake a smile. Little squirrel is never sent to the principal's office. He doesn't know his ABCs. He doesn't take Tylenol. He doesn't hit his wife and rape his children. Little squirrel doesn't run wild with a tranquilizer gun. And he doesn't take American Express. He doesn't expect someone to take his picture every time he gets to the top of the tree. He doesn't jack cars, he just gets hit by cars. He doesn't start riots over Cabbage Patch dolls. Little squirrel doesn't pretend people are waterproof radios and throw them off damn bridges. The squirrel, so small, can't comprehend the value, the disintegrating value of $1, and he never wishes the worst on someone. He can't collect stamps. He can't rollerblade. He doesn't care about Arsenio Hall. He doesn't have to pay taxes. He isn't famous for breaking the sound barrier, and he doesn't go to raves. He doesn't spend his nights romancing the phone. He's not down with Pat Sajak. He never thought Vanna White was all that good-looking. He's not into Nirvana before and after. He doesn't get a piece of the pie. He doesn't die. He doesn't die the way that we die. We die pathetically embarrassed. Maybe that's why we slaughter them and hang them up to drain and drip and dry. Yeah, maybe that's why we pull Dominion trips over the animals that are showing us up. We're so embarrassed when we learn that the animals are more humane than humans. Yeah, maybe that's why they aren't caught up in giant treadmills, but just little ones, which are easier to get out of. And maybe they are simple, but at least they are simple, and at least they are true in what is given to them. At least they utilize all their instruments to their full potential and capacity. So I do not care how simple, because at least they are true to themselves and never lie and never take their surroundings for granted. They never exploit and plunder in such a grand-scale fashion. They have never set up concentration camps and plantation camps and placed down clamps. And when they do kill, it's not for entertainment, it's for survival, not lust, commercialism, and addiction, not industry,
not a reason to live, not a reason to be real long-winded. We have found not a single reason to live the way we are living, not a human mind. We have found not a human mind that helps us to reason beyond animal life and what has hit below animal life, creating a whole new category of life. The human animal has not found the reason to abandon spirituality in its pure form, but it has anyway. And that is what we call dogmatic. Dogmatic. He has not used his intelligence to get out of animal life and human life. After all, it is all material life. Life is not one big bowl of cherries here when all you have is a Dixie cup. We are far from far off natural paradise, so lay down here where the grass is soft, where the squirrels have played. You will see the sky and your future flickering, paved. Here in the grass you can live, and live in peace with every piece of mind put together where no holes are found, because no holes, the flowers to smell are life. Nature is life. Friendship is life. Love is life. And this Dominion trip is poison, and poison is poison, which is death, which is a good thing taken away. So I give my props to a squirrel. So I give props to a squirrel, and I give props again to a squirrel, to the ones who live their lives with a little bit of dignity, because they would never let an excuse cross their minds, and they would never try to make death and control and manipulation kosher, because real humans never live like the humans, but they take their lessons and learn their manners from little squirrels.
There's Dominion Trip, and that's, people love that one. Me, I'm tired of it by now, because everybody asks for me to read it, and one thing is too long for me to read all the time. I'll probably read it tonight, because I'm doing a featured reading. The thing, I just read it so many times, but it's really important, because it's got a lot of meaning in it, and I wrote it on the bus. What happened, a lot of my writings I did on the bus.
What bus?
The Metro bus, on the way to work. I would go, I worked in a health food store last summer in Virginia, and I live in Maryland, so I'd have to take the bus and then two trains. It was like a 2-hour ride every morning, and then at night, the same trip. So it was a lot of time to write. And a lot of those times I'd be tired. I was working, if you add up all the hours, I was working 40 hours, and it's a 4-hour trip, 4-hour travel. I was working about 60 hours a week. I was tired, and I was, just groggy and a little depressed. And so I'd get on the train, and I would write about like all these intense things. And one day I was on the bus, and I was just like almost falling asleep, but I just forced myself to write, because I'm tired of sleeping. I just too much sleeping, and my job really affected me really bad, because I was always a person who always meditated, always like read out of scriptures and things like that, and my job like cut all that out, a lot of it out, a lot of my free time, and then the free time I had, I was sleeping. So I would always force myself to write, and then I looked out the window this one day, and I saw the squirrel in the grass, and I compared it, not that the squirrel is like brilliant or anything like that, because, I mean, if you go and you sit next to a squirrel for 2 seconds, he'll run away, but if he hung out, what's he going to tell you? Unless you yourself are a little introspective, and you can see, well, he's got a simple life. He's not working 60 hours a week, and he's not, doing this, and he's not, and that's what the whole poem, he's not this and this and that and that and that. And so that just like, I just went with that, and I wrote that poem for 2 trips on the train, like to work and then from work that night, and that night it was done. Because people are skeptics, and most people, my belief is that most people here don't want to hear about religion. They want to hear about this and that, whatever, because they lost their faith in God. And rightfully so, in certain philosophies, they don't practically explain the science of God, devotion to God, what, who you are, what's going to happen to you, why you're suffering. They don't practically explain it. So when they don't have those answers solved, then they're skeptical, and they become what's called secular. So when I get up here, I don't like to say I'm this denomination, because people freak out. They say it's a cult or whatever,
and this and that. So I just want them to hear what I have to say. So when it comes time to me finally telling them, or them figuring out, oh, he's this, then they say, well, what can we say? He read all this poetry and we like it. He's not mindless, and this and that. My boss, and whoever finds out. But I follow what is called Hare Krishna. Say, even a person who's poor can be materialistic. If they get mad and they want to overthrow this and that person because they're poor and they're mad at them, but the person who's Krishna conscious and realizes he's not the body, he's like, well, I don't want that anyway. Because actually that person, he's got all those things and he's blinded by all these things he has. So if you have that understanding, it's like a revolution. And that's why my writing is like that. I look at it as revolutionary because it can change the world starting from the inside, you know, and that's the only way it's really going to happen. You can politically readjust things. You can like free a certain area at one time, and then all those people that are free, they're going to go and they're going to start their petty arguments within themselves and start another revolution, another so-called industrial revolution, all these different nonsense so-called revolutions. But the real revolution is spiritual, and it's in the self. I don't really feel at home anywhere. Even at my own house, I don't really feel at home. I think it's definitely a really good thing that people can get together and read their poetry. Yet, sometimes I think, well, after the night's over and all the poetry's been read, there's nothing that's really been done. Sometimes I feel like that. That, like, people are just going to go home and do their routine things, you know? And, for instance, if someone gets up and they read a couple good lines and they're like, oh, I like that line. All right, well, they like that line, but then what, you know? And that's not really what I want to do with my poetry, you know? Now, people do that, they're like, I like that one line, and I like the squirrel, and I like the, you know, how he did whatever. But to me, it has so much more meaning, and it's hard. It's really hard to get it to change another person's way of thinking.
Okay, that's it for Poetry Night. You've been a great crowd. Thanks a lot. We'll see you next Wednesday.
These two are breasts. These two are me.
Get chaos together. Send my goddamn regards up the river.
Fine line between joking and, oh my God, your dick is hanging out of your pants.
Can we get a little respect for the readers over here? Thank you. Some of the poetry will bring a tear to your eye, and some of it will make you want to hurl, but one thing's for sure, there's never a dull moment on Planet X Poetry Night.
My unconscious thoughts were filled with disbelief that this lady had stolen my heart like a thief. And if that were a crime, I would surely press charges.
But I want the supernatural consciousness of your mortal being. Give me your soul. Please?
Silver gray gliding graces, clicks and squeals and smiling faces.
Chop, 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 chop. Heads are mowed from their necks.
The white porcelain says American Standard. I read as I piss.